So this kind of feels like a snark style situation, which I normally don't have much interest in talking about. And don't misunderstand me. I love drama, but I tend to avoid the weird accusations about people's private lives and things of this nature. I just find it incredibly cringy, and it can lead to some super dark places when you engage in this kind of stuff regularly. And this is doubly true with figures like Hasan Piker, who already have so much worth criticizing about them up front publicly without the need to speculate on his private life. But this particular situation is so bizarre, and honestly, it kind of just made me upset enough to want to talk about it. And I don't really have any qualms with talking about this for two big reasons. One is that, like I said, the clips I'm going to show you are genuinely just, in my opinion, pretty upsetting to watch. I think they're worth talking about. And two, Hasan Piker is probably the #1 pusher of snark culture. I'm not going to go into exactly what this is in this video, but if you're familiar with the internet at all, a couple very famous examples of snark-like communities would be the communities that existed solely around harassing figures like Wings of Redemption or Boogie or Darkside Phil. Hasan historically has wielded communities of a similar nature against his own personal enemies, against people like Destiny and Ethan Klein, among others, by giving air to these communities, repeating the narratives they come up with, and even sometimes promoting them very directly on his stream.
Okay, Hasan, can I ask you a question? Why the fuck were you browsing H3 Snark the other day and pulling clips from that?
I don't know. Someone fucking sent me a clip in the chat.
Okay.
Now, the fact that Hasan wields these communities against people is one thing, but even beyond that, I feel like the clips I'm going to show you deserve being shown and talked about anyways. I don't really think they're going to require much of a justification because, at least in my opinion, they're pretty upsetting and potentially very, very revealing of this guy's character. And I will give you the counter arguments I'm seeing pop up from Hasan's fans and from Hasan himself, which I'm not finding all that convincing personally, but maybe they'll be convincing to you guys. First, I'm gonna play the clip once without saying anything, and then I'll play it back with commentary.
But it is emblematic of all of America's much more consequential violence. Okay? It's the same reason as to why America, Kaya, please just fucking go, just stop. Jesus Christ, what are you doing? You're being such a baby. It's just, you're making her stressed. She just literally is so incredibly spoiled from my mom.
Now, I played it without commentary because I didn't want to prime you too heavily before watching this on your own, but now that you've watched, I'll give you commentary on what we know for a fact happens here, and then afterwards I'll give my opinion of what is happening here that we can't really entirely see on screen. So Hasan is talking about something, and his dog, Kaya, starts to stand up and step off the bed, seemingly to walk around. Hasan, for reasons that I can only really speculate on, rolls his eyes and exclaims angrily that he's pissed at the dog for standing up, I guess. The dog very quickly reacts to Hasan shouting and immediately moves back to its previous spot on the cot. Hasan simultaneously leans over and appears to possibly reach for something off screen, maybe pressing a button or touching a screen or something. And then the dog very loudly yelps in what seems to be pain.
Just stop. Jesus Christ, what are you doing?
So what I believe is happening here, and what most people who watch this overwhelmingly seem to believe is happening here, is that Hasan is pressing a button, probably a remote control on his desk, that shocks his dog here through a shock collar. Now, I'm aware that opinions on shock collars are all over the place. I know some people believe things like electric fences are super important to keeping their dogs safe. Other people believe electric collars are the only effective method of training extremely unruly dogs, but none of these arguments really seem to apply here. The dog doesn't do anything that could even be viewed as remotely unruly here. All she does is stand up and start walking, which, if you've never had a dog as a pet, I can tell you with great authority that dogs tend to stand up and and even at times walk around. So even ignoring the shock collar accusations for a second here, the first question on my mind is, why is Hasan so angry that his dog stood up in the first place? Because there are many very innocuous reasons why a dog would do that. To go drink some water, to stretch their legs, or simply because they are bored and want to stimulate themselves mentally somehow. Would you not feel the same way if you had to watch or listen to Hasan Piker talk about politics for several hours a day, every single day of your living, breathing life? I would be going crazy. So the dog just clearly just wanted to catch a break from this commie bullshit it was hearing, or it just wanted to get a drink of water, more likely. So I don't really fully understand why Hasan would get so angry about his dog doing this in the first place. It doesn't really make any sense. So there are a couple counter arguments that have cropped up here since this clip went viral a couple hours ago. There are two counter arguments I've seen come from Hasan and his fans up to now. One of them is really stupid, and the other one is plausible, but I don't know, man. The really stupid one is the argument that he's using a shock collar to train his dog. This is obviously idiotic, because even if that were true, like I just said, shocking his dog here really serves no purpose, unless of course the purpose is to keep the dog lying on the bed at all times while he's live streaming as a sort of cute prop for his background. Raikou, stop. Gosh darn it, stop. See, I didn't even shock her. She scratched my door. All your dog did was stand up. It certainly wouldn't be entirely out of character for Hasan to be deeply obsessed with his image to a very insane degree, at times even to the detriment of others. Although if that obsession with crafting his image extends to even hurting his own pets, that's pretty sad. And honestly goes beyond what I thought this guy was capable of, even though I'm like no fan of his by any stretch of the imagination. The other counter argument, which on its face has a little more weight, is that no, this isn't a shock collar, you haters. You guys are being ridiculous. The dog just simply clipped her nail on something when she was getting back on her bed. In fact, this is actually what Hasan went with for his explanation as well, which out of the two, you know, I guess that's the better choice.
Is there like a fucking LSF video or something? Is that why there's like hella people coming in here and screeching? Is that what's going on? Oh, classic. It started on D, then H3, then LSF is the classic pipeline. I'm gonna fucking die, dude. Yes, I am incredibly abusive to the not only best trained, but also the best behaving and most spoiled dog on the planet. Is from when Kaya yelped. Yeah, she yelped because she fucking clipped herself on something when she was getting off the bed.
Now, this is a plausible explanation for the yelp the dog does, although it would require some incredibly unlucky timing in happening both right after Hasan loudly expressed his anger at the dog and also perfectly coinciding with Hasan seemingly leaning forward and pressing something like a remote control for a shock collar. And it still wouldn't explain why Hasan was so furious with the dog in the first place. Again, all she did was stand up and take 2 steps away from her cot. Regardless, though, people immediately started trying to investigate this narrative of Kaya catching her nail on something. Someone posted this edited version of the clip, which is zoomed in and has the exposure cranked up a bunch, with the goal, of course, of giving people a more clear view of what's happening here.
Violence, okay? It's the same reason as to why America... Kaya, please just fucking go. Just stop.
Now, it can't really be said conclusively that this didn't happen based on this footage, but from where I'm sitting, I just don't see it. It appears that her left foot gets completely onto the cot, so I don't think it's very likely that her nail could have gotten stuck between the like edge of the bedding portion and the frame on the side. And anyways, she recoils her right paw, which is just touching the hardwood floor. Her back legs don't seem to get caught in anything here either, so for me personally, I don't really buy this explanation. I guess it's possible maybe she twisted her left ankle here. I haven't seen anyone even suggesting this, but again, I'm not really seeing it either way, but that's my good faith hat getting put on here. You guys tell me below if you think there's any plausibility to what Hasan's saying here or not. Maybe I'm blinded by my dislike for the guy. Although I generally am willing to be at least fair to Hasan, even despite how I feel about him or his ideology. And you're free to evaluate this video I did on him a couple months back, whether or not you agree. It was a critical video of Hasan for sure, but still pretty fair in my opinion, but regardless. Now, there are a couple of other clips floating around that people have dug up to try and gain a better understanding of this situation and Hasan's general mindset and how he generally treats his pets. I don't really put a ton of weight in these clips, but I do think they're both a little interesting from like a retrospective context. Here's the first clip, which is many years old at this point, which is worth keeping in mind because generally old clips are not super powerful evidence against someone, although I do find this interesting for one reason, which I'll explain shortly.
Jordan.
My old roommate wanted to use a shock collar for fish and his dogs. For fish and his dogs barking. I couldn't do it. I have it still. I bought it. They are incredibly effective.
So what I find interesting about this clip, despite its age, is that it tells us three things about Hasan that are relevant to this present scenario, at least mildly. One, it tells us that Hasan has considered the use of shock collars in the past, using them on his dogs. Two, it tells us that Hasan actually considered the use of these collars very effective at their goal, which is shutting up the dogs, presumably by watching his roommate use them on his roommate's dogs. And thirdly, it tells us that Hasan actually went as far as to buy one of these collars himself to put on his own dog, but claims he didn't have the heart to do it. Now, this is where it gets a little bit harder to believe him because he went through with buying it, but he didn't use it, apparently. I mean, it's certainly possible. I'm not saying it's impossible, but we can't really know for certain, right? So again, this clip is very old, and to what degree of relevance it holds today, that's up to you to decide. For me, I think it's interesting. It raises the likelihood of the accusations about what happened in the clip from today being accurate, for me at least a tiny bit, but it's hard to say for sure, of course. Now, here's another clip, this one more recent, but it also is less significant to this situation, in my opinion, because it doesn't really give us any meaningful facts about this situation or about Hasan's mindset. It only gives us things we can speculate on. Here's the clip.
I love her. I think her collar's too tight.
Well, it's here we can.
It's you have to be able to get two fingers, and I couldn't even get one. I think you're choking her.
She's like, it's because she has a lot of neck meat.
Now, like I said, this clip doesn't introduce any new facts to this situation beyond Kaya's collar was maybe too tight one time. Whether this is indicative of anything, we can't really be certain. One thought that popped into my head here was that if the collar really is a shock collar, it's possible that the dog will rip it off unless it's fastened super tightly around her neck, which she presumably would want to rip it off at the first given opportunity, given that it fucking shocks her. But that's assuming that this is a shock collar. So, however, it's also possible that Hasan just fastened the dog's collar too tightly out of nothing more than ignorance, or that he didn't even fasten it too tightly at all. I have no idea who this fucking lady is. I don't know if I should believe anything she says or if this is just some woo-woo bullshit. I'm not really keen on giving Hasan the benefit of the doubt on anything, but if we're being fair here, that is a definite possibility. So, what do I make of all this? If I'm being honest, it's not incredibly charitable towards Hasan, but it's also hard to find anywhere here to be charitable, and I tried. We know Hasan has considered using shock collars on his dogs in the past, even going so far as to purchase one for his previous dog Fish, who's passed away, although at the time he claimed he never actually did use it. Again, whether or not you believe this like 7-year-old clip of Hasan, if he's being honest there or not, when he says he never actually used the shock collar on Fish, I mean, like, I don't know. That's up to you to decide. Beyond that, I personally believe Hasan is a clout demon, to borrow his own terminology. He's very obsessed with crafting an image for his audience to a high degree and curating his environment very carefully. I mean, look at how detailed this background is. It's honestly impressive. It's kind of art. I've spent some amount of time on my background, but this is very impressive from Hasan. And we have other more blatant examples of this clout goblin mindset Hasan has, and the ways in which this mindset has led him to doing some pretty deplorable things with the aim of damaging other people's character, careers, and credibility. I don't want to get bogged down on detailing every unhinged detail of Hasan's internet past here because I want this video to stay on topic. And there are already plenty of multiple hour-long documentaries on YouTube going through all of these things, so I'll skip that for now. But I mean, if anyone somehow disagrees with the statement that Hasan is obsessed with clout, I'm happy to point out some examples of this behavior in the comments. So I take Hasan's willingness to at least consider and even purchase a shock collar for his dog. Combine that with his desire to curate a very particular perfect image and environment, almost to an American Psycho-esque degree to his audience. And then I evaluate the footage in this clip, and I'm willing to say with around 90% confidence here that Hasan is probably pressing a button here to shock his dog with a shock collar. And mind you, shock her sharply enough for her to yelp loudly in pain simply for standing up and walking around, because he probably just wants her to sit in the background on this cot for the entirety of his stream as like a prop or accessory, decoration, whatever word you want to use. Of course, if this truly is the case, I believe it would be incredibly revealing about Hasan's character. And yes, I keep seeing people saying, no shit, Hasan's a bad person. We already knew this, bro. Why are you surprised? But for me, this is pretty surprising regardless. And yeah, while Hasan has said and done some pretty reprehensible shit in the past, like, you know, supporting terrorist groups, promoting anti-Semitic rhetoric in the United States, constantly mischaracterizing or flat out lying about his perceived enemies, or painting them as monstrous people unfairly, or wielding some of the most disgusting online communities to ever exist against people he doesn't like as tools of proxy harassment, doxing, and stalking. This still was a shocking clip to me, because with all of the other stuff I just mentioned, Hasan is able to keep himself somewhat distanced and detached from the outcomes of those disgusting behaviors, however disgusting they may have been. But in this case, it kind of looks like he's fucking torturing a helpless creature right in front of his face who he's supposed to love and care about, into sitting in place all day as a decoration for his stream, which is not really what dogs are supposed to do. You know, they're supposed to get up, go on walks, play. And this doesn't mean that these things don't happen off stream, but they're still not, you shouldn't expect a dog to sit there for hours and hours and hours on end silently, quietly, in the middle of the day, mind you. And if you ask me, Hasan's doing this in order to maintain some weird notion or image. Maybe it's like an innocence thing or a cute vibe that like makes him seem less harmful to society than he really is. I don't really know. But what I do know is that it doesn't really make sense for him to get the dog in the first place if he just views her as an annoyance. That's beyond me. Unless she's just part of his backdrop, right? Or some status symbol or something, because apparently those dogs tend to be very expensive is what I've heard. Hasan claims he got the dog at a shelter, I think, but others claim he's lying. Apparently this breed of dog is typically like 20 grand. It's a show dog. You'd never be able to find this breed at a shelter, and it's just another status symbol like the Hollywood Mansion or the Porsche or what have you. If you ask me, I don't know. I don't know why he has the dog. I don't know why he's shocking the dog. It certainly looks like he's shocking the dog. But yeah, my conclusion is that he's shocking his dog for standing up because it fucks with the feng shui of his stream or some shit like that. Am I cooked, chat? Let me know in the comments. Much love.